Hi, everyone. It's Nina Collins from The Wolfer, and I'm here today with Anabelle Gurwitch, one of our favorite Wolfers, who is an author, a humorist. I mean, her bio is actually super, super impressive, so I'm going to read some of it because we're here to celebrate her new book, which is called You're Leaving When? Adventures in Downward Mobility. And I should say, I just finished Schitt's Creek, and so I love the kind of parallels, and it just really, your book is so funny. So I'm going to read your bio quickly. Anabelle Gurwitch is an actress
I love
and a New York Times bestselling author of I See You Made an Effort and a whole bunch of other really funny books. She was a longtime co-host of Dinner and a Movie and a regular commentator on NPR. She's written for the New Yorker, the New York Times, the LA Times, Oprah, Wall Street Journal. She's also been a news anchor, a resident humorist for The Nation. She's been an actress. She's been on Seinfeld. Anabelle has done a ton of things. She was a finalist for the Thurber Prize for American Humor. She's a super, super funny writer and really a great chronicler of life our age. So a lot like Sandra Singh Low, kind of in that same vein. And honestly, when I read your books, I always think of Sandra and kind of go back and forth. And I'm just very, very happy to be here with you. So thank you and welcome. So the book.
Thanks, Nina. I wanted to say that, Sandra is a really good friend of mine, and we have a lot of commonality in our writing, and I think both of us are always looking to use humor as a coping mechanism. And just by the way, the first chapter of my book, the introduction, is called I Thought There'd Be Coasting. And, I think that was it was actually something that Marissa Tomei said to me when we were at a book signing a few years back. We were talking about how everyone our age is working number of jobs, and we, so many of our friends, they have kids we're still supporting, and sort of like it's sort of like the version of I'm dancing as fast as I can. Like, when does the coasting start? There really isn't a lot of coasting for for people our age. We're all trying to do everything, and the way that the economy is and the way that our stresses are with our families and everything, it just it's a constant dance. And in that chapter, though, it starts with a lunch where I'm meeting my friend Sasha, and I'm on my austerity budget. This is right after my divorce, and I don't know that Sasha is going to pay for my lunch. So I order like a side of radishes, and she's got this lamb kebab. And when she offers me to share with her, I like attack it with a kind of voraciousness that scared us both. Sasha is actually Sandra Singh Low. I just want
she is. That's so funny.
There's a lot of secrets in that book.
That's really
I love. This book is about girlfriends, and how we, it takes a village to be a woman, I think. Totally. And
one of the funniest chapters actually is toward the end of the book, where you envision everyone. This is something we've talked about in The Wolfer a million times, where you envision you and your girlfriends moving into a colony of tiny houses. And it starts off with a letter to like 8 girlfriends. And by the end of the chapter, you're down to 1 girlfriend who might be willing to do this with you. It's really funny.
Yeah. Well, of course, who doesn't have the fantasy about, the tiny houses? And the funny thing is for that chapter, I mean, those are all names of girlfriends, but it's not the actual girlfriends who, have these problems or whatever the issues that, I mean, it's a satire, right? But the thing is that I wrote that after a friend of mine, who shall be unnamed because she's a wolfer, went on a weekend trip with besties. And at one point, things did not go well, and they ended up driving to an airport to drop one of them off. It just was like a bad weekend, and they didn't end up doing that, but it's just sort of they were doing this sort of low rent, girls trip. Yeah. And things can be stressful when you're in really close quarters. Totally. But they all got back together.
In that chapter, one of the kind of what makes it so funny is kind of you start to think, oh, well, she has diabetes, and that might be a drag to live with, like all the kind of nitty gritty. You start talking about each other's investments and bad decision making, and it's just very, very funny. So it is really a girlfriend book. Another chapter.
Well, the thing that I think actually,
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, the funny thing is I think the most annoying thing to live with is something that I do, which is I realize, and I didn't realize this till COVID, because at this book I was writing still during COVID, when the beginning of COVID was that, like, I realized that I hum out loud when I'm doing like cleaning, and I thought, oh my God, like, and so I'm really always making fun of myself in my books.
Yeah.
I'm always, my target consumer is really me and the mistakes I made. And one of the themes of this book, and I think every wolfer is going to relate to this, it's really coming to a point in your life where you're saying you're bumping up against the self that you tell yourself you are and the self that you present to the world, and how do those two things meet. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting place. And of course I always come down on the side ultimately of embracing the contradictions. I think we're neither as great or as terrible as we sometimes, as women, I know I do this to myself. I put myself into resilience prison. Like, I have to be so good at bouncing back, or I have to, I'm all this. I'm so, but the other side of that is then when I'm mad at myself for not living up to my expectations, I punish myself. And I feel like that's one of the things I'm writing to in this book is about, well, what happens when you realize maybe you're never going to have the vacation house, you're going to be the guest at someone's vacation house, and can we be okay with ourselves for wherever we've landed? And not that we're not still working towards things, but what if this is as good as it gets? I think that's a really interesting idea and place to operate from, of like, can I, I always make fun of this stuff while I'm talking about it. Like, I always say that in my neighborhood, someone is teaching a workshop on rat swiffering, but radical acceptance is really, I think where a lot of us, could use a little nudging. And I think during COVID, it's really been an important thing.
I think it's actually,
I interrupted.
No, not at all. I think it's a really excellent point, actually, for this point in life, to remember constantly the radical acceptance idea, because people were, a lot of us, we struggle with this idea of irrelevance as we get older. I mean, it's exactly everything you say, kind of, where am I? Where have I made my mistakes? Is it going to get any better? Is this the best that it's ever going to be? I mean, these are really excellent points. But the other thing that strikes me listening to you talk is it's so funny because I know you personally a bit, and these are really serious, important ideas. But having just read the book, which is like laugh out loud, on the floor funny, it makes me think about that old trope or truism or whatever the word is, that all comedy writers are writing from pain, right? That all comedy writers are actually really dark, depressed, anxious people who put their emotion in. It's just it's an interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating, actually. Let's talk. There are two things No, go ahead. Okay.
No, I was going to say, I hope you're going to talk about the chapter about the Mona Lisa vaginal atrophy.
Well, that's the thing. Honestly, we could talk about every single chapter in this book, because it literally feels like you are a wolfer, but it is so representative of everything we talk about all the time. So yeah, there's a great chapter about starting to have sex again after 20 years of marriage and discovering vaginal atrophy and doing the Mona Lisa, and discovering vibrators. And I loved all of that. How are you doing with that now? Because in that chapter, you finally have sex, and that's good. Finally, you get a lingerie box, which is funny.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that is, again, it's like about like girlfriend power. I could not have started, as I say, like the idea of facing unfamiliar penis was terrifying to me. I wanted to go for what I call familiar penis, places I have been before, just to sort of to work my way back,
But I love what
and
you say
it
there.
was kind of hilarious.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you for a sec because I love what you say there about how every penis comes attached to a person with a story, and I don't want to hear the story. That really resonated at this point in life. It's like, I got it.
I mean, I had a lot of random penis when I was younger, and I just don't think I can handle that now because they just like, people are like people to me now that was just not the same as when I was younger, and I haven't been single a long time. So, but what's really fun was that like all my girlfriends became this project for them. And people were sending videos, and then my friend, as I say, Jill, now that I'm doing these events, I'm telling everybody Jill is Julia Sweeney. Julia Sweeney ordered me to go to the pleasure chest and check out the latest vibrators, and it was, it's, if you haven't seen what's out there lately, you got to get like, like hip to what's hip. I just said hip. Oh my God. But like you have to see what's happening, and that, encountering the array of vibrators that come with apps. Like I do have a fantasy that I am going to that you can start your vibrator from your Siri. You can like speak into your phone, and like I just did have this terrible idea that if I got a vibrator that had a smart app, I would make a news headline which would be spinster stimulated to death by hacked vibrator. Her sister told her this would happen if she didn't get repaired with someone. I mean, my mind always goes to the worst case scenario. But I did get back in the saddle. But what I had to confront, one of the things was this. I went and got the Mona Lisa vaginal rejuvenation, and
People love.
the thing about it that
It's expensive, but people love it. Go ahead. Sorry.
it is expensive, and that's part of what I wanted to write about, is how unfair it is. First of all, it's unfair that they call it vaginal atrophy. I mean, erectile dysfunction is so much like more kinder of a name. Like who would like sentence you to vaginal atrophy? Like I just feel like some terrible guy came up with that. They could have come up with a much nicer way of putting that. And then I wanted to write about how much more expensive it is for women to remain sexually active than men. You can get your doctor to prescribe Viagra or Cialis. It's everywhere. It's on posters. It's in jokes and G-rated movies. But if you're a woman and you're looking to plump up the collagen inside your vagina, no, that's not on any poster. There's like not any knowledge about it out there. And again, it's like so I wanted to write about it so that it would be less taboo. That's always my goal. But of course, COVID put a damper on things. Let's just put it that way. So, like many people,
hard to date during.
Yeah, I've
I completely agree.
Yeah, I just don't.
The vaginal atrophy point.
Not felt safe enough. I know some people have been.
Oh, you haven't. So you haven't been dating at all?
No, well, during COVID, I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So that has been a really big game changer in my life in terms of what I'm focused on right now. And I'm doing really well. I'm on a targeted medication that allows me to live a very normal life right now. But that kind of became a little bit more important than dating, although I am doing really well, and I hope in the not too distant, non-social distance future, I will be in a non-social distance proximity to somebody,
Yeah.
that would be great. I've been really by myself for almost a year now. So
Sounds so rough. And I
yeah.
know that you've been sick. You had told me in an email, and I'm really so sorry. I wasn't sure whether we should bring it up in the interview or not. So I'm glad you brought it up. You're doing okay? I mean, that's really hard to be on lockdown in COVID, alone, dealing with a serious, serious illness. That sounds horrifying.
Right.
I mean, it's like one of those.
It is horrifying. I mean, the thing is, yeah, I mean, it's one of those life moments where, so first of all, I haven't been sick. I have this terrible disease, this that's now a chronic illness, but I actually didn't have symptoms, which is, it's a really, well, people can, I'm going to be putting up information about how lung cancer for non-smoking women is kind of an epidemic proportions now, which is really shocking. It was not on my radar. I was like, breast cancer, I know about that, but I've been so fortunate to have, big support, and part of that is my girlfriends. And I just want to say that the girlfriend network is so important. It's such a funny thing, like how everybody has different capacity at different moments. So on one day, my friend Karen will leave me matzo ball soup outside my door, and then I'll go bring some ice cream to my friend Caitlin, who has going through breast cancer chemo. I mean, people are going through really big things right now alone. So these small gestures are so wonderful and beautiful and so appreciated. And I think, as always, these kinds of things, when these things happen, we find out who we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am someone who freaks out, and I've done that, and I've had tremendous anxiety about this, but I've also, the sense of humor has kicked in, because it is that thing of like, when the worst things happen, somehow I've turned my brain towards humor as a coping mechanism, and I'm sticking with that. I think it's really important to find, and the humor in things. Otherwise, it's all a weeper, and I refuse to do that.
It's beautiful. And also so many things you're saying. I mean, the power of girlfriends and friendship and gestures and learning really who we are. I mean, everyone always says that's the gift of cancer, right? That you really learn who you are and you appreciate things, and really seeing your friends and feeling loved like that is beautiful. I mean, it is. So
Yeah, I never use that phrase "gift of cancer" because it has a no return policy, and but the point is really true.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, there's a lot in this book that people will relate to about other subjects as well, that I think are part of the importance of our social network of women. And part, the title "You're Leaving When," of course, refers to also how our children grow up, and then it's really about, life in that space when they're about to launch or not launching,
Yeah.
or what's happening, or coming home and boomeranging home, and how do we make relationships with our kids when they're at this age. And of course, my child is a non-binary person, and so I'm writing about what it's like to lose a son but gain a non-binary child, and so, I mean, these are all these issues that are ones that I think we're all dealing with,
Absolutely.
and it's, my goal is always to,
There were two chapters.
anyway, my goal is always to find the,
Yeah, no, there's so much. I mean, it's the whole book, honestly, Annabelle, is so completely relatable and smart. And I mean, I just love it. I love the chapter where I think you're talking about kind of Hollywood and how Hollywood has covered middle-aged women in downward mobility. First of all, you point out that Gloria Swanson was 50 years old when she filmed Sunset Boulevard, which completely blew me away. I was like, oh my God. It's a great chapter where you revisit like Gloria Swanson and Golden Girls and An Unmarried Woman and Jill Clayburgh, and I don't know, everyone's Shirley Valentine, Something's Got to Give. Like I just loved it. It's a really good, someone should excerpt it and publish it as a second serial piece if they haven't already, because it's a wonderful look at the way middle-aged women have
Well,
presented, and I just loved it. So I just wanted to say that it's terrific. Gloria, Lady Bird, Sex Education, like you really do a good job.
oh, thank you. You know, one of the things that was really fun for me about writing about that was things that I learned. So, a couple of things that I learned from doing all this research. I was watching movies and TV shows and looking at how midlife has been portrayed. And that was one of the things that I realized was how often cooking
Mm.
was used in films to humanize a woman. Like if a woman was going to be somehow unlikable or very successful in her career, then she had to also be cooking to show that she's also someone who is, you know, warm and loving. And you know, the thing you don't see is like when someone is like, you know what, you know how you know you're not supposed to like someone. I mean, in Glenn Close and Fatal Attraction, she cooks a rabbit. That's as close she comes to cooking a meal. Like we know, don't like her because she doesn't cook. But it was just really interesting how often I noticed that even for successful women in movies, there's always this moment where you have to show them cooking. And I just thought, like, let us out of the kitchen.
That is,
The kitchen. It was just really.
it's really interesting. I don't cook at all, and so it's funny what that says to me. And also, it reminds me of Hillary Clinton and the cookies. Remember, years and years ago, during one of Bill's elections, she got all.
They made her make cookies.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I also realized that I don't think. Well, I have no idea if they intended this as a message, but I believe this is true. So I was writing about how in Bewitched, which I loved, I think a lot of us loved Bewitched. I'm sure it was like in reruns when I was younger, but
I loved it.
I don't even think I knew. Right. And why did we love it? I think that it was conceived by a guy as like, oh, the witch in the house, like she's this, witchy wife. But I think that we liked it because what we saw in it was there was this sly look she always had on her face when she was going to thwart Darren, when she had power and she knew it. And any power that that her husband had, it was really because she granted it.
Yeah.
There was this other messaging going on in that show. But then I realized when I was watching the reruns to write about that show, the biggest message that I think came through that I don't think the creators intended, which was this. I always loved Endora.
Yes,
Agnes Moore.
Endora was amazing.
Samantha's mom.
Yeah.
She was amazing. Why was she amazing? First of all, she was, swanning around in these outfits. She was colorful. She was big. She was bold. She didn't have a husband. You never saw Samantha's dad. No, she was on her own, right? And then the funny thing is that always her spells were stronger than Samantha with age. And I stick by the idea that that's the secret message of Bewitched, was that women become more powerful when they get older.
That. I love that. And it was one of my favorite shows as a kid. That's great.
I feel like Endora is my spirit animal. Like I feel like my whole goal in life is just to be like Endora and Bewitched.
It's a great goal. I totally love it. All right. Well, before I don't want to leave without talking a little bit about the stuff you talk about your son, because I do think it's really important and really brave. And I kind of wondered how they, not your son, your non-binary child. I don't know. What do you say when you refer to your child? I think it's really important the way you talk about the whole preferred pronouns conversation, and you share so honestly the way they went through, drug stuff and wilderness. And so many women, I've been through this. I have 4 kids. I have 2 kids who have been in various forms of treatment. It's so common and people don't talk about it enough, and the extreme cost of it and the fear of kind of, you talk so well about the burden, the anxiety, the worry, then the ongoing kind of watching them become grown-ups while they're still so overly attached. Like you, like I left home at, I don't know, 17 and kind of never looked back. Not that it was easy, but it's so different now with our kids, right? So I really admire how you do that.
Yeah.
Really honestly, with humor.
Well, thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. I mean, this is sort of the most sort of close to my heart part of this book, right? You know, writing about being a mom when things are not perfect and your life is not Instagrammable, and my kid is 4 years sober, which I'm just so grateful for. And we went through a lot as a family together. And of course, they made this transition to being a non-binary person and identifying, going beyond genders. And what was important to me was to write about this from the perspective of being a parent and being a mother. Like, their story is their story, but I wanted to walk through this and, as a mom, and to write about this and to acknowledge all of, like, the worst parts of my feelings and fears, and also the, horribly scary, hilarious things. I mean, like, there was one point, like, friends were saying, oh, you got to go to the medication whisperer for your kid, like, who prescribes drugs, right? For anxiety in Los Angeles. And I'm not kidding. To get an appointment, you had to know someone who knows someone who knows someone. It was $950. You had to sacrifice a virgin in a volcano and hope there's like a blue moon. I mean, it was like, I'm not kidding. It was so crazy, the things you were supposed to do and how much money it was. And we never could afford to go to that person.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, like, make this less taboo to write about. And
it's so important. It's really a gift, I think, because I was just talking with someone today. There's a wolfer right now who's going through this. She wrote briefly on the platform about it, but I texted with her and she said, it's so hard to talk about because I'm trying to protect his privacy, which I totally understand. But really, mothers, are really suffering. Parents really suffer with this stuff and need help getting through it.
And one thing I the thing is that I'm able to write about this because, first of all, I'm writing with some distance, with some attachment. Because the things I'm writing about have happened in the past. Like, I always have to, in order to be able to write about something, there has to be a certain amount of detachment, of time that's passed or perspective that's passed, so that I'm able to really understand a point of view that I can write about. That is, I mean, I always, there are things that I can't write about because they're too current, or I don't fully understand. But I do, for that section, I really did need to get permission. And this is really hard. Without son or daughter, it doesn't seem right to say child when your kid is 23.
Yeah.
So I sometimes just say the offspring whose cell phone bill I'm still paying for. I mean, it's just really long. It's there's got to be another word. We need another word. But we don't have it yet.
Come up with one. Yeah, my kid. I don't know. Yeah, I hear you. It's hard. I guess just name. I guess Ezra, because they still go by Ezra, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I have to say I'm a little attached to that name, and I hope they will stay attached to it. But of course, if they don't, if Ezra wants to become something else one day, I mean, what do? We kick and scream privately, and then we support our children, And I wanted to show some of the kicking and screaming because I feel like, that's something we see in public, like, I'm a P flag mom and I'm all out there. But honestly, my first thought was, like, when Ezra was rooming with someone named Berber, I'm like, Berber, the carpet? Are you, if you change your name to be fucking Berber,
I'm
I'm
out.
gonna disown you. You know, I mean, like, that's my first thought. And I want to share that before I get to the part of like, yes, I'm with you, because this is what makes us human. This is real. And this is what we don't see necessarily in the public. And so I just always want to admit to the things I'm not proud of, because we all have that, and
Because we
that's what
all
makes us
have.
human. So that's always my thing.
And that's so much what, what the Wolfer community is about, is like letting everyone tell their stories so we can all feel more normal and safe and get answers and feel understood. And so you are an iconic Wolfer. You are an Uber Wolfer. I really appreciate you and I'm grateful for you. And I want everyone to buy Annabelle's book. You're Leaving When. It's very, very funny and you will relate to so much. Sorry, I still have a galley. You have an actual hardcover probably. There you go. There you go.
I will send you a hard cover.
Don't bother. I'll get it. I don't want to make you have any work. I'm going to come visit you when I come visit my daughter who's in Silver Lake, hopefully in the next, once we're all vaccinated. I'm going to come and bring you food and try and take care of you a little bit.
I can't wait.
You deserve it. Really glad to see you.
Oh, listen, I just want to get together. Thank you. I'm so glad to see you. And I miss our Wolfer events, like just going out for dinner with a group of women and there's always like a someone who knows someone who knows someone. And I just want to say, when you read the book, let me know what you relate to. I just, that's my favorite part of writing.
Oh, that's good to know. So
getting feedback.
how can people contact you? What's your preferred way for readers to reach out?
Wolfer, come on, find me on Wolfer. I mean, just if you just start posting about it, as everybody knows, I'm on there all day. I'm always answering people, and I'm just always like, oh, everyone's always talking about things I relate to. So just, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in our annex, in our little safe space.
A little safe space. All right. Big hug to you, and I hope you have a good evening. Big kiss.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Big hug. Big hugs to all Wolfers out there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.